In 1975, Tom Jones took the stage in Las Vegas wearing a flashy new outfit and belting out a song no one had ever heard before. What happened next stunned the entire room. Instead of cheers, he was met with boos. Drinks were thrown. People stormed out. Security had to rush him off stage as the furious crowd chanted, "Go home." Tom was so shaken by the experience that he wouldn't perform again for 6 months. But here's the shocking part. The audience's outrage had nothing to do with his singing. Behind the backlash was a secret, one he kept hidden for 48 years. Tom Jones was born on June 7, 1940, in the tiny Welsh town of Treforest, just outside Pontypridd in South Wales. His father worked long, grueling hours in the coal mines, while his mother held the household together. Life was harsh, but their community was tight and full of grit. Music pulsed through the culture, and even as a child, Tom carried that rhythm in his voice. His father hoped he'd join him in the mines one day, but fate had other plans. Everything changed when Tom turned 12. That year, he was diagnosed with tuberculosis, a devastating illness at the time. For 2 years, he was confined to his bed, unable to go outside or live like other kids. Tom later described it as the darkest period of his life, yet, something powerful emerged in that solitude. Day after day, he listened to the radio, falling in love with music. The voices of American blues and early rock and roll artists, Little Richard, Elvis Presley, ignited something in him. When he finally returned to school, academics and sports didn't interest him much. But there was one thing no one could ignore: his voice. He sang at assemblies with such power that teachers had to ask him to tone it down. One music teacher famously asked why he sang the Lord's Prayer like a gospel singer. Tom was already breaking the mold, doing something bold, and people were starting to take notice. By 16, he had left school for good, determined to chase a dream that had been building during those long, sickbed years. In March 1957, Tom married his childhood sweetheart, Linda Trenchard. They were both just 16, and already expecting their son, Mark. But their love story had deep roots. Tom met Linda when they were only 8 years old, and he was instantly smitten. He pursued her for years until she agreed to go out with him at 15. Their marriage would endure nearly 6 decades, lasting until Linda's death in 2016. She was 75 and had survived cancer 3 times. Despite the challenges, they stayed together. But Tom was candid about his infidelity during his rise to fame. At the peak of his career, he claimed to sleep with hundreds of women a year while touring. In interviews, he said Linda never brought it up. "She loves being married to me, and I love being married to her," he once said. Tom's real journey into music began in 1963, when he joined a Welsh beat group called Tommy Scott and the Senators. He got the chance after their lead singer quit, and that one opportunity would change everything. It all started in a smoky pub in South Wales. A local bass player saw Tom perform and was so impressed, he asked him to join his band. Tom agreed, his payment, a few pounds and some beer. They began small, gigging in working-class venues across the region, slowly building their sound and presence. At first, they were managed by 2 locals and even recorded with famed producer Joe Meek. But the sessions fizzled, and their hopes were dashed. Defeated, they returned to Wales. That might have been the end, until one night changed everything. Gordon Mills, a sharp-eyed manager also from South Wales, caught Tom performing in a club. He didn't just hear talent, he saw a star. He whisked Tom off to London, gave him the stage name Tom Jones, after the popular film, and rebranded the band from the Senators to the Playboys, and eventually, the Squires. Vernon Hopkins, the bassist who'd first brought Tom in, remained a close ally until a bitter falling out in 1969, when Mills fired him. Those early London years were brutally hard. The band lived crammed into a shabby Notting Hill flat, scraping together whatever food they could find. At one point, hunger drove them to desperate lengths. They'd find restaurants with large bathroom windows, order meals, then sneak out the back without paying. It was survival mode. Tom later admitted that things got so bleak, he considered giving up entirely. But he didn't. He held on, and eventually, that persistence made him a multi-millionaire. Decades later, in 2017, Tom opened up about something darker from his early days, something he'd never talked about before. As the Harvey Weinstein scandal shook Hollywood, Tom revealed that abuse and harassment weren't limited to actors. It happened in the music industry too, to both women and men. In an interview, he said someone once tried to come onto him early in his career. "It wasn't bad," he recalled. "Just someone tried to pull, and I said, no, thank you." He didn't name the person, but Vernon later shared a troubling story involving Joe Meek, claiming Tom once ran out of Meek's home yelling that he'd been groped. Tom confirmed the experience left him shaken. "It made me feel terrible," he said, "so I just walked away." Then, in 1964, Gordon Mills walked into a tiny Welsh nightclub and witnessed the spark that would become a firestorm. Mills wasn't a major figure, just a songwriter with a couple of modest hits. But what he saw that night blew him away. On stage, a 24-year-old named Thomas Jones Woodward, performing as Tommy Scott, delivered a raw, powerful performance that oozed charisma. Mills saw something electric. He told Tom to drop the teen scene look, throw on a tux, and fully embrace a bold new identity, Tom Jones. The name wasn't just from a movie, it was a brand. Mills also noticed something else. Women weren't just listening, they were drawn to him. That magnetism became central to the Tom Jones image. Soon, Mills secured a deal with Decca Records. Tom's first single, Chills and Fever, dropped in August 1964. It should have been a breakthrough, but it wasn't. Behind the scenes, chaos reigned. Joe Meek had recorded an earlier version, but it was shelved. When the final version came out, the label had brought in session players to clean it up, sidelining Tom's band. The result was loud, energetic, but too slick. Critics said it lacked soul. Worse, it flopped. It didn't chart. Tom's dream was already slipping. Then came It's Not Unusual, the game changer. Written by Mills and Les Reed, it wasn't even meant for him. It had been offered to rising star Sandy Shaw, but she heard Tom sing and insisted he record it. The track was bold, brassy, and impossible to ignore. The BBC refused to play it. They thought it was too provocative. But pirate station Radio Caroline spun it non-stop, and that risk paid off. The song exploded. By March 1965, just a month after its release, It's Not Unusual shot to #1 in the UK. A month later, it cracked the US Billboard Top 10. Practically overnight, Tom Jones wasn't just a Welshman in a tuxedo. He was a global force, a new voice that couldn't be ignored. Riding that momentum, Gordon Mills wasted no time. He got Tom back in the studio to record his debut album, Along Came Jones, released in June 1965. A mix of covers and his breakout hit, it climbed to #11 in the UK, keeping the buzz alive. His follow-up single, Once Upon a Time, didn't hit quite as hard. It peaked at #32, but it kept him in the public eye. Then came With These Hands, a soulful cover of an old ballad. It didn't crack the top 10 either, but it showed something deeper. Jones wasn't just a loud voice, he could bring tenderness too. Then came a curveball. In 1965, Tom was approached to sing a song for a quirky new film starring Peter Sellers and Woody Allen. The title, What's New Pussycat? Tom hated it. He thought it was ridiculous. Christ, what the bloody hell do they want me to sing this for? He said. He dreamed of being a soul singer, not crooning novelty tunes. But composer Burt Bacharach insisted, I need a big voice for this crazy song. It's a crazy film, and I need a voice of authority. Tom finally agreed, and when he hit the studio, he went full throttle. That strange little tune became a smash. It reached #3 on the US charts and stayed there for 12 weeks. Against all odds, it became one of his signature songs. That same year, Tom got a call to do something even bigger. Sing the theme for the next James Bond movie, Thunderball. Originally, the theme was a different track called Mr. Kiss Kiss, Bang Bang, already recorded by two singers. But the studio insisted the title had to be in the lyrics. So they rushed out a new song, and handed it to Tom. With barely any time, Jones recorded Thunderball under intense pressure. During the final take, he hit a powerful high note with so much intensity, he said he nearly passed out. I closed my eyes and held the note so long. When I opened them, the room was spinning. That note helped make Thunderball a hit, and with 3 major singles in rotation, Tom was no longer just part of the British invasion. He was in a league of his own. By 1966, his momentum hit a peak. That year, Tom Jones won the Grammy for Best New Artist, a massive achievement. This wasn't just flash and charisma anymore. He was the real deal. And with American recognition behind him, the door to even greater fame swung wide open. He'd already shown versatility, pop hits, movie themes, and soul. But his manager, Gordon Mills, had a bigger vision. He knew if Tom wanted a lasting career, he couldn't just rely on sex appeal. And that was starting to become a problem. Some critics slammed Tom's wild performances, especially when women threw underwear on stage. It was starting to distract from the music. So in 1966, they made a bold pivot. Tom recorded Green Grass of Home, a soft, emotional country ballad that revealed a new side, vulnerable, reflective. The song was a smash, hitting #1 in the UK and climbing the American charts too. It helped reshape his image entirely. 2 years later came Delilah, a dramatic, almost operatic song about jealousy and murder. It was dark, intense, and people couldn't get enough. With its haunting melody and Tom's soaring vocals, the song reached #2 in the UK and became one of his defining hits. These powerful tracks helped rewrite his story. He wasn't just a heartthrob anymore. He was a true artist, capable of range and depth. Fans saw it. Critics heard it. The transformation was real. That evolution led to his next big break, television. In 1969, Tom launched his own variety show, This Is Tom Jones. Airing in both the UK and the US simultaneously, the show ran from 1969 to 1971, putting him in front of millions of households every week. It wasn't just a popular show, it was a sensation. This Is Tom Jones didn't just feature him as the host. His electric performances earned him a Golden Globe nomination. He was reportedly making a jaw-dropping $9 million per season, a staggering amount for the time. The show quickly became known for its A-list guest lineup. Everyone from The Who and Janis Joplin to Cher, Stevie Wonder, Nancy Sinatra, Peter Sellers, and Ella Fitzgerald graced the stage. The first season, packed with 15 high-energy episodes, brought a fresh kind of musical variety to television, and audiences were hooked. While conquering TV, Jones also began dominating Las Vegas. The son of a Welsh coal miner was now headlining some of the biggest stages in the world. His first 18-month residency was a smash success. From there, he leveled up, taking the stage at the International, and later, the legendary Caesars Palace. By 1974, he had become such a mainstay in Vegas that none other than Elvis Presley introduced him on stage during one of his own shows, saying, "He's my favorite singer, one of the greatest performers I've ever seen." Fans couldn't get enough. At a 1990 concert, people joked about needing binoculars just to catch a glimpse of his iconic dance moves. For many, it didn't matter what he was singing, they just came for the electricity he brought to the stage. His live shows were legendary, bursting with raw energy and serious musical chops. But there was one thing fans didn't expect to become part of the Tom Jones experience: flying underwear. It started innocently enough in 1968 at the Copacabana in New York. During a sweaty performance, women offered him napkins to wipe his brow. Then one bold fan handed him her underwear. The next day, newspapers ran with the story, and a new concert ritual was born. By the time he hit Vegas later that year, the fan frenzy had intensified. Women weren't just tossing underwear, they were throwing room keys onto the stage. It became such a staple of his shows that people joked he could open a Victoria's Secret with his collection. Even in the 1990s, the legend lived on. At one concert, a woman laughed and admitted she'd thought about throwing hers too. Amid the glitz and chaos, one of the most meaningful friendships in Jones's life was quietly blossoming: his bond with Elvis Presley. The two first met in 1965 at Paramount Studios, but it was in Vegas where their friendship really took root. Elvis rarely connected deeply with other performers, but with Tom, it was different. They'd talk music, jam for hours, and sometimes stay up all night strumming guitars and swapping songs in private. In one story, Jones was showering after a show when Elvis burst in with a new tune he had to play for him. Even Priscilla Presley noticed how lit up Elvis became around Tom. She said Tom understood him musically in a way no one else really did. But Tom wasn't just thinking about music, he was thinking bigger. In 1970, at the height of his fame, he and Gordon Mills took a bold leap into the business side of the industry by launching MAM Records. This wasn't just a vanity label, it was a real power move. Their very first release, Dave Edmunds' I Hear You Knocking, and it was a hit. From there, MAM Records quickly became a powerhouse, signing rising stars like Gilbert O'Sullivan, whose 1971 album gave the label its first major hit. More successes followed with artists like Lindsay DePaul and Engelbert Humperdinck. But Tom Jones wasn't just focused on music, he expanded MAM's portfolio into slots and airlines, proving he wasn't just a performer, but a savvy businessman. However, by the late 1970s, the landscape was changing. American labels started to dominate the market, and MAM lost its edge. By the 1980s, the label was sold to Chrysalis Records, and today its catalog is owned by BMG. Beyond his music, Tom Jones became infamous for his many high-profile affairs. One of the most scandalous was with 19-year-old Miss World 1973, Marjorie Wallace. They met backstage at the London Palladium, and things escalated quickly. By the next month, Tom had bought matching bracelets for Wallace and his wife Linda, whose birthdays were just days apart. The affair went public when paparazzi caught Tom and Marjorie kissing on a Barbados beach during a Miss World special. The photos caused a media storm, and Wallace lost her crown. Things only got messier when it was revealed that she was engaged to race car driver Peter Revson. Tom ended the relationship abruptly when he learned Linda was about to find out. Devastated, Wallace overdosed on sleeping pills, requiring dialysis to recover. She insisted it wasn't a suicide attempt, but the fallout left her emotionally scarred. What began as a moment of fame had turned tragic. Tom's affairs weren't isolated. At the height of his fame in the 60s and 70s, he admitted to sleeping with up to 250 women a year. He even had a special dressing room dedicated to meeting groupies. His publicist once said that Tom had never been known for his faithfulness. Naturally, this took a toll on his marriage to Linda. She found out about his affair with Mary Wilson of the Supremes, leading to a confrontation so intense Tom claimed she physically lashed out at him. Yet, despite the chaos, they reached an unspoken understanding. When he was on tour, they didn't discuss his infidelities. Tom later joked that if he crossed a certain line, Linda would hurt him, but not in a place he'd want to be hurt. Remarkably, through it all, Linda stayed by his side. In 1987, while on tour in the US, Tom had a brief fling with model Catherine Berkery. She became pregnant and gave birth to a son, Jonathan, in 1988. Tom denied paternity, and the matter escalated into a long legal battle. A DNA test eventually confirmed he was the father, and in 1989, a judge made it official. Tom agreed to pay child support and private school tuition, but he never met Jonathan. For years, Tom avoided discussing the situation. It wasn't until 2008 that he publicly admitted the court had been right all along. By then, Jonathan was 23 and publicly expressed a desire to meet his father. "Just to hear him say my name would be so cool," he said. But Tom remained silent, and Jonathan never got the moment he had longed for. Through it all, Linda stayed with him. Tom and Linda had been together since their teenage years in Pontypridd, South Wales. They started dating at 15, married at 16, just before their son Mark was born. Linda stayed out of the spotlight, preferring to stay home while Tom toured the world. She bore a lot during their marriage, and Tom never pretended otherwise. He often said she was the love of his life, the one who kept him grounded. Her way of keeping him humble was clear. "I married Thomas Woodward, so don't try that Tom Jones bullshit with me." When Linda passed away from lung cancer in 2016, Tom was devastated. He sold their Los Angeles home, just as she had asked, and moved back to London. When asked if he would ever marry again, he said no. There could never be another history like the one he had with her. By the mid-1970s, Tom was in a strange spot. He was still globally famous, but his music wasn't connecting like it used to. In 1977, he had a surprise hit on the US country charts with Say You'll Stay Until Tomorrow, which reached number 1 for a week and made it to number 15 on the pop charts. But in the UK, it barely made a dent. It would be his last major hit for nearly 10 years. By the early 1980s, Tom was mostly seen as a Vegas act, and that image didn't sit well with him. "I only ever played 2-week residencies, maybe 4 times a year," he once said, frustrated that it was reported as if he were always there. His flashy outfits and big TV shows had vanished, and some critics even labeled him an old warhorse, singing sentimental songs that mainly appealed to American country fans. In 1986, Tom faced another tough blow. His longtime manager, Gordon Mills, passed away. Mills had discovered Tom in Wales, guided his rise, and shaped his career from the start. Losing him was more than just a personal loss. It marked the end of an era. In a bold move, Tom handed control of his career to his 29-year-old son, Mark, despite industry skepticism. Mark saw the problem clearly. His father's look and style had become a joke. "We had to strip everything back," Mark later said. So, they took a huge gamble and cancelled the steady Vegas shows that had kept money flowing for years. They chose reinvention over safety. The risk paid off. In 1988, British electronic group Art of Noise heard Tom's bold performance of Prince's Kiss on TV. They reached out to collaborate, and the result was a funky, high-energy reimagining of the song. When it dropped in October, it took off. The song hit number 5 in the UK, surpassing Prince's original, and topped the charts in Spain and New Zealand. The music video, featuring Tom's new look and sound, won an MTV award. For a 48-year-old singer who had been pushed aside by the pop world, Kiss was a powerful comeback. As Mark said, it removed anybody that was iffy about Tom Jones. "You either got it or you didn't." Success proved that Tom could still surprise the world. In 1993, at 54, when many of his peers had faded, he signed with Interscope Records. His bold new album The Lead and How to Swing It was released, and the first single, If I Only Knew, climbed to number 11 on the UK charts. It wasn't just a hit, it was a statement. In 1994, Tom Jones hosted the MTV Europe Music Awards and released The Lead and How to Swing It, blending modern sounds with his iconic voice. In 1999, Reload became a massive hit, featuring 15 duets and selling over 4 million copies. The song Sex Bomb became a cultural sensation. Tom also showed his humor in Mars Attack, 1996, playing himself in a comedy that poked fun at his Vegas image. In 2006, after being knighted, he released Stoned in Love with Chicane, reaching number 7 in the UK, proving he could still thrive in the evolving music scene.